Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take complex topics and break them down into what really matters for you.
Glad to be here.
So today we're diving into something quite specific, a rare genetic disorder called multisystem proteinopathy 1, MSP1 for short.
That's right. NSP1, it stems from changes in one particular gene, the VCP gene, and it's progressive, meaning it worsens over time.
Okay, progressive. And it affects multiple systems, like the name suggests.
Exactly. Most commonly, you see muscle weakness, sometimes Paget's disease of bone, but it can also hit the brain, cause dementia, or affect breathing, other systems too. It's really quite variable.
That variability must make it challenging, right? For patients and doctors.
Oh, absolutely. Both for managing it day to day and for researchers trying to, track it and develop treatments. It's tough when the presentation differs so much person to person.
And that leads us nicely to our source for today. It's a research article, yeah.
Yes, just published in the Annals of Clinical and Translational Neurology, a really important piece of work, I think.
And it's looking at how we measure things in MSP1, like how the disease affects people's function.
Spot on. The study had a really clear mission. First, basically, to make sure the standard tests doctors use and the questionnaires patients fill out to confirm they're actually valid and reliable for MSP1.
Okay, validating the tools.
Makes sense. But then, and this is the really exciting part, they wanted to see if these crucial assessments could actually be done reliably, remotely, from a person's own home.
Ah, okay. Remote testing. Let's unpack that a bit.
Right.
Why is proving remote tests work such a big deal, particularly for a condition like MSP1?
Well, think about it. If you have a progressive condition, maybe muscle weakness, maybe breathing issues, traveling to a specialist clinic, sometimes hours away, it can be incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. Costly too, I bet. Time off work, maybe needing help to travel.
Exactly that. It's a huge burden. So if you could get really solid, reliable measurements without needing that difficult trip, that changes everything for access to monitoring and, crucially, for clinical trials.
All right, it opens doors. So how did the researchers actually test this? Did they compare clinic visits to home visits?
They did. Participants went through a whole battery of tests. First, in the clinic setting, the traditional way.
Standard procedure.
Right. And then, again, usually within a few weeks, they did similar tests remotely, from home, using video conferencing.
Interesting. What kind of functions were they measuring?
A whole range, really. They used what are called clinical outcome assessments, or COAs. These are performance-based tests.
Like physical tasks?
Yes. Things like timed walk tests, how fast can you walk a certain distance, stair climbing tests, and measures for arm and hand function, using scales like the PUL, which stands for Performance of Upper Limb. Basically, how well can you use your arms for daily stuff?
Okay, so physical function. What else?
They also measured breathing using spirometry, blowing into a device, looking at things like FVC, forced vital capacity, which gives an idea of lung volume. And importantly, they included patient-reported outcomes, PROs.
Those are the questionnaires you mentioned.
Yep, where people report on how the disease impacts their daily life, their symptoms, capturing the patient perspective directly.
And I read they even sent out kits to make the home testing more consistent.
They did, yeah. That was pretty key. Things like measuring tapes, maybe a specific step stool for a spare test, to try and standardize the home environment as much as possible.
Smart. Sounds like a lot of coordination.
It was, and they worked really closely with a patient advocacy group, Cure VCP Disease. That group was fantastic. Apparently helped get the kits together, shipped them out, even provided support calls to help people get set up.
That partnership sounds vital. Collaboration making it happen.
Absolutely vital. You need that kind of teamwork, especially in rare disease research.
Okay, so they did the clinic tests, they did the remote tests with the kits.
Mm-hmm.
What did they find? Are these measures actually good for MSP1? And did the remote stuff work?
The results were really encouraging, actually. First off, they confirmed that, yes, these standard functional tests, the COAs and the patient questionnaires, the PROs, they are valid and reliable for MSP1.
Good. Step 1 confirmed.
And they also found that how people performed on many tests lined up significantly with how long they'd had symptoms. So the tests seemed to accurately reflect disease progression over time, which is exactly what you want.
Okay, that's solid validation. Now, the big question, the remote testing. How did that compare?
That's where it gets really interesting, as you said. The study showed high reliability for many of the key tests, not just comparing clinic to clinic or home to home, but the crucial comparison, clinic versus home.
So the results were similar whether done in person or via video call.
For many core measures, yes. Now, obviously, some things might be tricky at home. Maybe you don't have space for a really long walk test, for example.
Right, limitations.
Sure. But key things like the NSAD scale, that's an overall severity score, the timed up and go test or tug for mobility, the PUL for upper limb function we mentioned, and even the FVC breathing test. They could all be done reliably over live video.
Wow, that really is significant. So what's the bottom line here? What does this mean going forward for people with MSP1?
It means, well, a couple of big things. We now have validated tools that doctors can use confidently to track the disease, and researchers can use to design better clinical trials. That's huge in itself.
Definitely need good measures for trials.
But maybe even more importantly, proving the reliability of remote testing opens a pathway to massively reduce those travel and access barriers we talked about.
Making it easier for people to participate.
So much easier. Imagine being able to join a clinical trial or get expert monitoring without having to face that really difficult journey. It could really democratize access, allowing more people, regardless of where they live or their mobility level, to participate in research. That's critical for speeding up progress in rare diseases like MSP1.
A major step forward then. Better tools, better access.
Exactly. It equips the community, both patients and researchers, much better for the future.
Okay, that's a fantastic summary. So here's something for you, our listener, to think about. If researchers have shown that reliable, complex clinical measurements can be taken remotely for a condition like MSP1, what could this kind of approach mean for improving access and accelerating research across the board for potentially many other rare diseases globally? Lots to consider there.
So stay curious, everyone, because there's a whole universe of discovery waiting out there.